What a great thing. I'm so glad to be a part of it. And thank you, Star, so much. Those were lovely pieces. Can't wait to hear more. I grew up in Bayonne, New Jersey, and it wasn't, even though New Jersey is called the Garden State, this wasn't a gardeny kind of area of New Jersey. It was a very citified area of New Jersey. It was mostly cement, and we had some parks, and it's Bayonne, New Jersey, which is right near Jersey City, if any of you are familiar with that, and across from Newark. And when my Hungarian immigrant grandparents came over and settled there, it was just a peninsula that had really lovely beaches and no cement, and everything was sand. Even though I grew up in the city, I've always been drawn to nature. And I started to think about that as I was writing some of the poems in the first section of this book. The first one is called The Voices. And it begins with the act of writing in Utah. My bee and blossom voice hums in my wrist each morning, flies out over the field, bumbles through dust in the April wind, flies low to the apple trees to lose myself whole in each center. Each morning when I was 10, a voice spoke in my right leg as it swung the kickstand up. I became the gold words of motion, circling in the cement yard, then breaking away to the earth of the park, where hundreds of geese lifted together. That bicycle voice is a wise voice, tells me to keep moving, get back on and churn my thin beige tires after my left eyebrow splits open, switch gears on the handlebar, feel for the easy uphill clicks in first, always coast downhill in second, still try to reach all the green lights in time. During the night, there is the other voice, the one that doubts its weightless bodies and tree of wings. But the bicycle voice says the roads are familiar, and the bee blossom voice says it will spill its spring language if I begin. Open, go in, go in. And I guess after I wrote that poem, I realized it was as much about writing as it was a memory of freedom and being outside in nature and having, a world outside of the orbit of the parents. The next poem is called Night Game School, and we used to play a lot of night games. We were, mostly outside, and never wanted to come in. And our fathers were, it seemed like our fathers were not around very much. Our mothers were somewhere in the background. And I became an instructor of English. Never knew that I was going to be, never thought that I wanted to be that when I was 10 years old. But now that I look back at these poems, I see kind of the seeds of that in these poems, because in many of the poems we played teacher a lot, and we took turns as teacher. And this game was pretty simple, and I don't know if you've heard of this. You're pretty young, so I don't know if you've done this or not, but we used to have many steps going up to the porch, probably about 20 steps. And a bunch of us would sit on the steps, and the teacher would have a stone and put the stone behind her back, and then we had to guess which one we got to move up a step. So it was a pretty simple game, but we loved it. So it's called Night Game School. We loved the game with a stone. From the angry neighbor's rectangle of roses, we stole a piece of slag to hold through heat lightning, and pink skies. One of us was teacher, trading it from fist to fist behind her back. The other two guessed right or wrong to slide up the dozen steps to reach the porch. We all loved how lucky we could be, though we won nothing. We were Patty, whose mother's fingers had thinned to pencils from a lingering leukemia, each night calling her daughter through the window to buy a pack of Marlboros. And Diane, in baggy culottes, the middle child of 7 no one ever looked for, landing on our block from a divorce in some exotic place I had never been to down the shore. And me, whose mother ate ice cream watching I Love Lucy, then news, waiting for me to throw down the stone. We were finally off our gold or silver Schwinns that had winged us through humidity and heat. We had already jumped cement cracks and stepped on them to break some mother's back. Now we needed dark to defy anyone who tried to call us in. June through August, among the fireflies we no longer cared to catch, and barely hearing horns of nearby ships or cars that thundered past, we took turns to knock on our friends' closed hands like doors to know which one was empty and which one kept the magic stone. At the end of this first section, I have a poem called English. I never considered myself to be a writer and didn't even know what that meant in my younger years and probably until college, really. And I thought of English as diagramming sentences and knowing your parts of speech, and I guess that I didn't think of revealing or think of poetry as anything but something that was, kind of something that you would recite, or maybe I wrote a few poems that were prayers because I went to Catholic school, but that was about it. And so this is about that maybe initial experience that I had that led me to think that I liked writing. I mean, I never thought that I would be a writer, but that I kind of liked it. English. I used to feel the subject was nothing, studying my own language. So easy. I thought I knew everything, remembering all of the forms of to be, that am is a verb. I was able to juggle a present participle among the pluperfect on tests. In 8th grade, strict Sister Rose made us write an essay about ourselves. I started with the title, but couldn't think of one. I hated the personal. Thought like my mother, who said to keep my mouth shut because she always said too much and got in trouble. I got a D for rambling. Tonight is so clear, the sky is shiny, unbreakable. It soothes my shoulders, soothes the braided rug. I think of ordering a lampshade with a clipper ship, its base a pretend telegraph, and a table of willow sticks. I've always loved codes, forms, diagrams like fishing lines dangling from the subject and predicate, which could finally be caught from the mystery of syntax, to be erased, thrown back, to go on living somewhere invisible. Then in 9th grade, Mrs. McCarthy, with her disheveled blouses and crowded teeth, assigned a poem with a metaphor, not about me, but a body of light. I wrote about Venus, her distance, and electricity. So that's how writing started for me. But it took many years in between or after that to even continue it. And I think that's kind of, sometimes it haphazardly starts with us, with special assignment or a teacher. I tried to remember that when I was teaching. I live now in Wellington, Utah, which is near Price. And my husband and I are originally from, as I said, I'm from New Jersey, he's from Ohio. And he went to the University of Utah, and we've lived in Utah ever since 1978. We lived in Salt Lake for several years, and then we moved to Wellington, and both taught at the College of Eastern Utah, which is now Utah State University Eastern. And we were, tree people. We liked what was back east, the water and the trees. And even though we were amazed by the desert, we never thought we would stay in Utah this long. And now we can't leave it. It's our home, and we don't want to. So this one is called Utah Map. And it's about kind of our, I would say, it follows kind of our feelings during our stay in Utah and what we noticed in Utah. It itches, the Utah Map, it itches with sand in its crevices. It flows in small rainbow lakes for the higher elevations, sunset yellow for basins and swells. It even shows you the dinosaur bones, where shallow seas receded and brought the ancient ones, whose mud and stone houses are called ruins. The briny breath of the Great Salt Lake, the eyes of the temple. What it doesn't show are lightning forks of development and foothill rifts named Fox Run and Deer Valley, or the jobs and technology cubicle where you can stare at the handsome, hulking Wasatch Mountains. After work, you can go up there and fly fish rivers that might swallow you, or ski until your heart hangs out, or to canyons down south so deep you can pull a night into winter around you. Waterfalls arc over your sleeping bag on a 1,000-foot ledge. Or farther south, where the desert glows red under spines of cliff rows, young women in prairie dresses and braided hair who all love one husband might be seen at a sporting goods store exclaiming over the seams on mountaineering pants. The women smile at their tow-headed children whose brains are locked in books about profits and beams, all craving another spoonful of cactus jelly. Four-wheelers driven by 8-year-olds raise dust all summer down roads ending in the soft gray hide of desert hills. Men drink 3-2 beer in the closet, and the women wish they could. I fold the map inside out to where I-15 exits are magnified. National Forest is tucked in there, Mirror Lake and Delicate Arch. Our 1940s Sears kit house, poems written next to petroglyphs, or on undulant mud after a flash flood, or in the backyard under the crabapple. My husband and I have been lost here on and off for 30 years. Our Jeep clawing its way over slick rock or getting stuck in quicksand. I don't know how we found the nerve to dig down, pull grasses, heave stones from old avalanches to rock under our wheels. How we had the sense to find our way back. I don't know how we lost map after map. About 5 years ago, I experimented with writing some things that were some ways that I had never written before. And one of the ways was writing a poem called The Woman I've Always Wanted to Be, which ended up being a poem in question and answer format. And thinking, oh, well, I'll just stick this in a folder or something. And then I took it out a few months later and I said, well, you know, I kind of like this poem. I've never written a poem like this before. And after that, I started to write other poems in question and answer format. And now I have a whole section in this book, and they're all called The Worrier, but they all have subtitles. And there's a whole other book that is separate from this book that is all Worrier poems. And I'm still writing them. So I don't know if they're going to continue into another book, who knows, but I'd like to read you a few of those poems because they were, they kind of gave me, I guess, I think of them as voices, two voices of myself. And when I look back at that first poem that I read to you called The Voices, it's kind of eerie, but my subconscious was maybe thinking of those poems. I don't know, even though they weren't written that way. And so I'd like to read a few of those. I'm going to read you one in the book and then a couple of, actually a couple of the new ones. They don't, to me they kind of make sense in a completely different way. And I kept them secret for a long time. The Worrier Hummingbird Feeder. What comes near your door tonight? A sound like feet balancing on stones. A sound like something big brushing through ferns. Something is here to eat. Does it come near your window? It's the same bear. Why do you think she's come? She smells the popcorn. What damage could she do? She could lift the feeder from its hook and drink. Are you watching her? Yes. Where is she now? She's below my kitchen window. She's walking into my garden. She's standing in the foxgloves. Where is she now? Rising to the jewel. That was probably one of the second or third Worrier poems. As I wrote them, I realized they didn't go together in sequence with how I wrote them. And eventually they found their way, and I guess into their sections in this new book. And they seem to be personal, poems about the environment, and also poems about the state of the world, and our difficulties, hence the title, The Worrier. Somebody pointed out to me, my friend Karen said, well, it's kind of like The Worrier too. The Worrier is kind of like a warrior. I said, oh, I kind of like that. The Worrier volunteer. I volunteered for a while at the Helper Railroad and Mining Museum, and it's really not about that. I think it started off with that thought, and it morphed its way into this poem about people in the Middle East. Where is the revolution? Everywhere. And now the retaliation. Wandering children, raped mothers, fathers who can't fight back or they will be killed. What will you do? Light a vigil candle. Say a prayer, I used to say. I won't turn away from the dead whose arms are above their heads as if still in sleep. I won't turn away from the living, their bodies maimed, the skin shining over hollow places. What do you feel? Horror. Their gratitude when others offer them bits of bread, something wild and green to eat. What do you know? They're on their knees at first light. They'll walk long past dark, anywhere someone will accept them. What do you do? take shoes and a nightgown to the thrift store. I'll risk something with words. I'm a volunteer at a museum. What do you see? A hummingbird whirs past my ears. A skunk arrives at dusk. What do you do? I buy rotisserie chicken for our cat. I buy the darkest chocolate cashews. What have you given up? Words, but they seep into my mouth anyway. What do you feel? I feel embroidered tonight, like an intricate tablecloth of blossoms whose eyes stay open. I'm going to end with a poem called How to Survive. Birth control, backup bifocals, a deep well, lots of wool. Jewels for barter. Here, the vines are delicate trails of gleaming 18-karat gold vermeil, and the fruit is an oh-so-sweet mix of faceted glass and cubic zirconia. The memory of Hagriphus gigantus, blue 7-foot bird, and 3-toed Utah raptor unearthed with its razor dew claw. The memory of living underwater, this long farewell. Be gentle with the children who are different. Buddhist truth, to be human is to suffer. Mistakes are necessary. Welcome. Let them laugh at themselves and accept a bit of healthy shame, for when we protect an imperiled individual of another species, we call it compassion. When a humpback whale does so, we call it instinct. Catch butterflies and mark wings. Write numbers on them. Remember all the eyes of Audubon's birds. Raw dandelions, never grass. String for the next lean-to. Keep dogs, cats, hamsters, fish, iguanas, and parakeets. Keep that energy. Offer zucchini, rosemary, tomatoes from your victory garden to 3 neighbors with no gold coins. Old TV jokes will come to you like, the dingo ate your baby. Bullets should cost $5,000 apiece. You'll remember how Lucy got caught in the freezer. Hold vodka, a thesis on the love of ships, a metal squirrel with a feathered tail. Nails, barrels of them, a 22 at least. Gather buckets, saws, sacks of rice, some beehives. Know the many ways to start fires. Thank you.